The announcement of another death made national headlines over the weekend as the measles outbreak heads into its third month here in West Texas. Coming up, we'll have the latest case numbers and details on a visit by a high-ranking member of the Trump administration.
The Trump administration was also making more headlines this weekend, but for a lot of different reasons, as thousands of Americans joined together to make their voices heard across the country. Find out why dozens of Lubbock residents gathered together on a snowy Saturday just across the street from the Texas Tech campus.
And both Red Raiders softball and baseball were back on the diamond in the hub city over the weekend, braving the weather and hoping to put some W's in the win column. MCTV's Todd Eldridge has details on which team made history while the other extended a streak in the wrong way in sports.
This is the MCTV Weekday Update.
Welcome to the Monday edition of the MCTV Weekday Update. I'm Caden Simpson.
And I'm Reese Griffin. The measles outbreak that started earlier this year has claimed a second victim, and this time it caught the attention of one of the nation's highest health administrators.
The announcement marks the second death in the current outbreak and only the third in 10 years. Yesterday morning, the New York Times broke the news that another child from the South Plains died on Thursday morning at University Medical Center. According to doctors, 8-year-old Daisy Hildebrand died due to pulmonary failure related to the measles infection. Hildebrand was not vaccinated and she had no underlying conditions before her death. Hildebrand lived in Seminole and had been hospitalized here in Lubbock for treatment. Along with the announcement of the second measles death in West Texas, it was also reported that U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would be attending Hildebrand's funeral on Sunday. Following the funeral services, Kennedy posted several pictures on social media posing with the Hildebrand family. He also took pictures with the Fur family, whose daughter, 6-year-old Kaylee, was the first person to die due to complications from measles since 2015. Kennedy left West Texas on Sunday afternoon and did not speak to the media during his time in Seminole.
Last week's measles death was also officially confirmed yesterday by the Texas Department of State Health Services. DSHS has been tracking the outbreak of measles throughout the state, including the epicenter, which is here on the South Plains. On Thursday, DSHS reported that the total number of cases in Texas had reached 481 since late January. The newest report did not include any new counties from our area, but Brown and Erath counties in central Texas were added last Tuesday. Thursday's report also gave a detailed breakdown of the number of residents from each county who had been tested positive for the measles infection. Here in Lubbock, 33 cases have been reported, and the number has been rising in recent weeks. There is no specific information on whether or not any Texas Tech students are included in the report, but the vast majority of infections have been discovered in people under the age of 18. Out of the 481 cases reported last week, 471 were unvaccinated, leaving only 10 people reported as infected that had received at least one dose of the MMR vaccine. Before his trip to Seminole yesterday, Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. posted on X saying, quote, "The most effective way to prevent the spread of measles is the MMR vaccine." Kennedy went on to say that after speaking with Governor Abbott, he was redeploying teams from the Centers for Disease Control to help provide the vaccine and other medications across Texas. Kennedy's support for the vaccine differs from statements he has made in the past that were against vaccinations. Kennedy's pledge to redeploy CDC teams to the state is also significant since federal funding cuts led to the closing of several MMR vaccination clinics in Texas last week.
Federal funding cuts were also the inspiration for more than 1,000 protests held throughout the United States over the weekend, including right here in Lubbock. On Saturday, dozens of local residents participated in a hands-off rally in front of the Tim Cole statue at the intersection of 19th and University. The protest started at 11 a.m. and continued for almost 2 hours, despite the cold, wet weather. Protesters held up a variety of signs, all based on various executive orders by President Donald Trump and funding cuts made by his administration. The protesters brought attention to issues such as education, human rights, veterans affairs, along with critiques and statements aimed directly at the president. The citizens at Lubbock's rally joined approximately 1,400 other protests held in all 50 states, as well as around the world. The Hub City's protest was organized locally, joining in with hundreds of groups across the country who were mobilized through an online initiative started by the Move On organization.
As you just saw, Saturday brought some unusual weather conditions to the South Plains area during the first weekend of April.
If you had been keeping up with the weather forecast last week, rain was definitely a possibility, but by late in the week, weather forecasters were predicting a bit more of a change in conditions. Rain did start on Friday night, but on Saturday morning, a cold front pushed temperatures near freezing and created the perfect conditions for snow. Heavy flakes came down for as much as 30 to 45 minutes at a time, with lighter snow in between. Unfortunately, the ground temperatures were still very warm, and most of Lubbock stayed above freezing during the day, leading to very little accumulation around the city. But there was still enough time to throw on a winter coat and at least attempt a snowball before the winter storm ended on Saturday evening.
The colder temperatures and snow on Saturday may have caught some students off guard, and the West Texas weather is always changing. So could we see another round of winter weather this week? Weather specialist Kennedy Schmidt has a look at the current conditions and what we can expect the rest of this week in today's MCTV forecast. Kennedy?
Our weather is looking pretty wonderful today compared to last week's rain and snow. As we go into this week, we'll have sunny skies and higher temperatures. But first, looking at our rainfall totals from the last couple of days, we had ½ an inch to an inch in the Lubbock area. And as we go up into the northern plains, we did see accumulations up to 2 inches, which is wonderful for the drought weather that we've been seeing and that will be persisting through the rest of this season. Of course, we did see that snowfall, and it did accumulate in some areas, such as Crest up to 7 inches, Hale Center 6 inches, Matador 4. Friona 3 inches, Morton 2.5, and officially here in Lubbock, we did get 1.5 inches of snow. As we go into our temperatures today, we'll see some pretty mild temperatures going into tomorrow in the afternoon at 5 p.m. Those temperatures will be increasing up into the higher 70s and lower 80s range in Friona 78, Rawls 81, and Matador 81. As we go into Wednesday, those temperatures will persist in the higher range. We'll see at 11 a.m. we'll hit the 70s, and potentially as we go more into the afternoon, those highs could go up into the 90s. Tonight here in Lubbock, we have a low of 42 degrees, clear skies with winds south-southwest at 8 miles per hour. And going into tomorrow, we'll have a high of 84, wonderful sunny skies with winds west-southwest at 15 miles per hour, so just a little bit of a breeze. Going into our 3-day forecast, as I said, we do have that wonderful sunshine that we see on Wednesday. We have a high of 90 degrees, Thursday a high of 84. As we go into the rest of the week, we do see that sunshine persist with a high of 84 on Friday. And Saturday and Sunday, we really see those temperatures ramping up. With on Saturday, we have a high of 95, Sunday a high of 96, and on Monday a high of 83. Looking at our lows staying in the 50s and 60s range, that freeze that we saw on Saturday may be the last freeze of the season. So looking at our board, we definitely see Sunday and Saturday pointing out for those high temperatures. I know I'll definitely be outside tanning, so it's about that time to get out your t-shirts and shorts and make sure you wear that sunscreen. I'm Kennedy Schmidt, and that's the weather. Back to you.
Thanks, Kennedy. Most students here on the Texas Tech campus are very familiar with the sporting programs overseen by Texas Tech Athletics. Programs such as football, basketball, baseball, and soccer have huge followings by Red Raiders on social media. But there's also a lot of other teams you may never have even heard of. MCTV's Isa Castillo has a look at one set of athletes who represent the red and black, even though they don't officially have a practice facility here on campus.
Gymnastics is a sport that takes hard work and determination, which might come easy for those who are trained by a coach. But for the Texas Tech Gymnastics Club, the team is coached by the members, who each share a unique passion for the sport.
When you go from just like being in gymnastics growing up and you kind of are told what to do to like leading the charge, definitely a big jump, but it's kind of rewarding whenever you see the event like come to life.
Jordan Ryan is the current president of the Texas Tech Gymnastics Club, and says while many might think the club is affiliated with the athletic department, a club team is not an official NCAA Division I team. The team is funded by the Rec Center and their own personal fundraising efforts. And on top of this, the team regularly balances attending classes, maintaining a social life, and then coming to practice at Tega Kids off of Milwaukee. The Texas Tech Gymnastics Club currently meets here from 8:30 to 11 Monday through Thursday, practicing things like their floor routine, the bar, or even the balance beam. And they're currently on their way to nationals. The team's national competition is taking place from April 2nd to April 5th in Pittsburgh. As the team prepares for their final competition of the season, they continue to rely on each other for support. William Hennard says his favorite part of the club is the welcoming environment his teammates provide for him.
If you're interested in doing gymnastics, regardless if you've ever done it before, I think this is a good place to do it. There's no like pressure of like coaches like making you do stuff, but at the same time there's definitely people here that know what they're doing, so they can help you with that if you were interested.
Ryan says that whether or not people are interested in the sport, they should check it out because they might be surprised at how much they will enjoy it.
I feel like gymnastics is such an interesting sport, and I feel like a lot of people don't know much about it. So just like give it a try and watch, because I feel like it really sucks you in. Just like the environment and like the camaraderie and team spirit.
For MCTV, I'm Issa Castillo.
As Issa mentioned, Texas Tech Gymnastics headed to Pittsburgh this weekend for the NAIGC National Competition. On Saturday, the team announced on their social media that James Martin was a finalist in advanced still rings and Caitlin Fleming made it to the Platinum all-around competition. Congratulations to the Texas Tech Gymnastics team.
The Texas Tech athletics calendar has been slightly less busy now that both the men's and women's basketball teams are finished for the season, but that hasn't made it any less exciting.
Several Red Raider teams were in action this weekend, including two who worked around the crazy West Texas weather with different results. MCTV's Todd Eldridge joins us now with a look at highlights from the past weekend in sports. Todd?
Thanks, Reese and Caden. Cold temperatures and snow put a pause on some action here on campus over the weekend, but the Texas Tech softball team made the most of it and added a note in the record books. The Red Raiders met up with the Utah Utes over the weekend on their home diamond at Rocky Johnson Field. Tech came in riding a 3-game winning streak and decided to extend that with a sweep over the Utes on Friday. Tech started off a doubleheader at 2 p.m. after it was decided to move Saturday's game to late Friday afternoon. The Red Raiders quickly scored 3 in the first, followed by a quiet second inning. But after that, Tech scored in every other frame and shut out the Utes after scoring a single run in the first, getting a 9-1 win to start off the weekend. Game 2 started shortly after the end of Tech's initial win, and the Red Raiders didn't make it any easier on Utah. Nigeri Kennedy pitched 7 straight innings in the nightcap, only allowing 2 hits and no runs, continuing her legendary season. The Red Raiders wrapped up Friday with a 3-0 victory before taking the day off on Saturday. Tech came into the game on Sunday ready to cap off a series sweep, but the Utes came out swinging, racking up 4 runs in the first. Once again, Nigeri Kennedy was handed the ball, and she went on to put up 6 straight shutout innings. In the meantime, the offense got to work, and in the 5th, RBIs by Alana Johnson and Victoria Valdez tied the score at 4. And one last RBI by Maya Davis gave Tech the go-ahead run at the end of the inning. And then in the 6th, Elena Johnson hit a homer to advance the score and seal the game, as the Red Raiders finished with a 7-4 win and a series sweep. Their first Big 12 home sweep since 2016. Red Raiders softball now heads into their next Big 12 showdown, holding an 8-game win streak and another week in the top 25. Texas Tech will take on Houston once again here at home this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. First pitch for Friday is set for 6 p.m., and you can catch all 3 games on ESPN+. The Red Raider baseball team also faced a change in schedule due to Saturday's winter weather, but unlike softball, Tech baseball doubled up on Sunday in place of Saturday's game. Also unlike softball, the results were not what the team wanted. Texas Tech baseball went into this weekend series against Cincinnati desperately needing a win after dropping their previous series at Kansas State and a midweek matchup with number 10 Oklahoma on the road. Both teams came into Friday's game with identical records as both teams worked their way into a tie in the 9th, leading to extra innings. The Red Raiders and Bearcats went scoreless through 2 frames, but in the 12th, a bases-loaded single by Cincy's Jack Natilli drove in a run, setting up the Bearcats for the win. Tech went scoreless in the bottom of the 12th, and Cincinnati came away with an 8-7 win in Game 1. Game 2 was a completely different story. With a first pitch on 11 a.m. on Sunday morning, the extra day off didn't work in Tech baseball's favor, as the Red Raiders dropped the second outing against the Bearcats 1-8. But the third and final game began looking up immediately, as the Red Raiders scored 4 runs in the first inning with a 1-run homer by Damian Bravo, followed up by a 3-run shot from designated hitter Davis Rivers. Since he didn't give up that easily, though, slowly gaining 3 runs by the 6th and then adding 5 more in the 7th to tie it up at 8. But the Red Raiders decided to come out with at least one win on the weekend with a huge 8th inning that included a score off a wild pitch, followed by 2 RBI doubles by Logan Hughes and a pair of RBI singles by Antonelli Savater and Dylan Maxey to put the Tech back in the win column with a final score of 12-8. The Red Raiders ended a 6-game losing streak with yesterday's win, and they hope to start a new streak in the other direction as they take on New Mexico tomorrow in Albuquerque. First pitch at Santa Ana Star Field is set for 3 p.m. with coverage on the Mountain West Digital Network. The remaining action this weekend was on the tennis court, with one team at home and the other missing the winter weather, but both continuing their run through the conference schedule. Starting with the men, the Red Raiders met up with number 2 TCU at the McLeod Tennis Center here in Lubbock. Tech missed the snow but still had to deal with the cold as they took on the Horned Frogs at 1 p.m. on Sunday. Unfortunately, the team dropped their 3rd conference matchup in a row, losing 1-4 this weekend. But the women's team had much better results, putting down West Virginia on Friday and Cincinnati Sunday on their home courts. Both times, the women won 4 straight matches to secure victory and also justifying their current number 15 ranking. The men return to action this Thursday at 5 p.m. in Waco and take on Baylor, and the women get 1 extra day off before welcoming Arizona State to town for a 5 p.m. date at the McLeod Tennis Center. Finally, the Texas track team was off this weekend after combining their masked rider meet here on campus to a single day on Thursday to avoid the weather. The team is hoping for sunnier skies and good results as they head south to College Station for the 44 Farms team invite this Friday and Saturday at Texas A&M. And that's a wrap-up of the past weekend action in Texas Tech sports. For now, I'm Todd, your resident non-trad sports nut, and it's back to you, Caden and Reese.
Thanks, Todd. So, Reese, did you get out in the weather on Saturday?
So I actually did. My family was in town, so we walked around campus while it was snowing. It was quite beautiful.
I also did the same thing. I did not like how the snow was blowing in my face whatever way I walked. It was very unfortunate.
Very bad.
That's all for today's edition of the MCTV Weekday Update.
Thanks so much for joining us, and be sure to check ttuhub.net every day for more news. We'll see you on Thursday.